I have in front of me this post on Facebook I saw the other day. It says, the first all-female Scouting America, formerly known as the Boy Scouts of America troop, has been formed in the Diocese of Charlotte. Read more here. And I don't want to be hard on these girls because they're just children, right? I'm not even going to show the picture. They look happy enough, and I'm sure there's nothing I have against them personally. But I do have a problem with what has led to this. You see an all-girls troop in what used to be a boys' movement, and it's actually sad. When Robert Baden-Powell started the Boy Scouts, it was a movement for boys to learn things from older men who were wise and experienced, to go out camping on an island, to learn how to hunt, to learn how to trap, to start a fire, to be self-sufficient. Those are particular skills that young men need to have. And it isn't that young women shouldn't know those skills. To some degree, they should know them, right? It's a good and useful knowledge to have. We have roles in our adult lives, but you need to have some cross-training, so to speak. So by no means am I against girls learning outdoor skills. The problem is boys and girls each need a particular socialization with members of their own sex. They need to be around men who they can learn to emulate. They need to be around men who are strong, tough, aggressive in appropriate ways, and who can teach them a path of self-sufficiency. So why do boys need to be taught by a father? Well, the same reason that if you want to learn how to build a deck in the back of your house, you should consult a master carpenter and not a painter. You need to learn the material from someone who's already experienced with it. So it's very important for boys to have time with godly men away from the influences of other women who mean well, but are not going to teach the boys how to be good men. They'll teach them possibly information about women. Maybe they'll learn how to interact with women, yes. But when it comes to being a man, young men need to learn from older men. Same thing applies to girls. And so the Boy Scouts was a beautiful thing because it facilitated that type of education. The girls have the Girl Scouts. The problem is, everyone's fine with the girls having the Girl Scouts. The problem is the Boy Scouts were perceived as more fun or more effective or whatever it was, probably because the Girl Scouts became liberal. But then the Boy Scouts having their own thing seemed a little prejudicial, a little sexist. Girls are as good as boys. Girls can do anything boys can do. The classic feminist, nasty, bitter, resentful trope. And now they got to put girls in the Boy Scouts. It's a success story. She's breaking the glass ceiling. Let's put it in a children's book. Let's make a movie about it. And it's all fun and games until you finally realize Boy Scouts has now become kind of a girl's game. And it's just another co-ed activity for kids to do, which is great. Have some co-ed activities. But now you've lost what the point of the Boy Scouts was, a venue for young men to learn from experienced men. They don't have that anymore. And this happens across our society everywhere. There's a space for men, a third space, if you will, outside of home, outside of work, where men can go, and it's just men. And they can learn from each other. Like the Bible says, iron can sharpen iron. They socialize. They have discussions that maybe won't happen around women because women have their own sets of interests. And that goes away because the men have lost that space and now women are included. The problem is the minute you include women in an environment that used to be all men, the rules of that environment change. And so let's say, for example, you're on a men's camping trip, right? You're out there exploring the wilderness. There's jokes. There's pushing around. You're doing your best to be independent and self-sufficient and work together as a team at the same time. But then let's say you bring a woman into this, a person who's from the weaker sex. Suddenly she's more vulnerable. She has to be protected. The group has to go slower for her. Everyone wants to be chivalrous. Everyone wants to be courteous. That's good. But now the dynamic has changed. You're oriented towards making this a comfortable place for the woman. It's no longer a man's activity. Iron is no longer sharpening iron. It's become feminized. There's a place for this, right? But not every place needs to be feminized. And now, where the guys are teasing, the guys are pushing around, suddenly that's a little too rough for the women. You can't do that around her. She might not like that. She might try to side with somebody who's getting bullied, try to interfere. Next thing you know, you have a woman kind of calling the shots, setting the tone, setting the rules of engagement, and you've lost the space. This is exactly what has happened in the workplace. In the workplace, there used to be camaraderie, there used to be effectiveness, good, hard work was done. You bring women in, suddenly now you have HR. And HR is there to watch over your shoulder and make sure you don't say anything rude to your coworker. They're there to make sure that you didn't say a joke that maybe went a little too far against a certain marginalized group. They're there to make sure that you do your sensitivity training, to be sure that you know how to react if your coworker wants to use they, them pronouns. You know what would have happened 100 years ago if you came into the workplace telling your fellow lumberjacks that, I'm going to use they, them pronouns? You'd get laughed at minimum, and you might get beat up. Suffice it to say, you wouldn't be using those pronouns anymore. And yet now that we have HR, you got to be inclusive. You got to be nice. You got to tolerate it. And then what's really unfortunate is that even though all this is being done ostensibly to keep out fights, to keep out tension, and to keep out, anything that's a little too rough or scary, none of it manages to stave off the most catty, petty, backstabbing, gossipy, hormonal, whining festivals that manage to take place, whispered in the cubicles, whispered in the break room. It's ridiculous. Nobody's happy because of this. It doesn't improve anything. This is popularly known. HR is the most useless department in any business. We need to get rid of it. And I don't just mean let's get rid of HR as a function of a successful corporation. Obviously, you need somebody who does the payroll. Have one guy do your payroll, okay? Have one guy answer the phone. But we need to do away with this feminization of our institutions. If you're starting a business, I haven't started a business, so I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But it would be really, really good if we could experimentally undo the co-ed employment experiment that's been going on in this country for the last, however long it's been, decades now. It'd be really nice if we could experimentally get back to that. I would quit my job in a heartbeat, and I would go try to work for a place like that because it's my theory that a lot of our workplaces are bureaucratic, slow, prone to fights, prone to drama, and are just totally insufferable strictly because we have gone feminist and included women in everything that they really have no business being in. And I'm not trying to hate on women. I don't hate women. I'm married to a woman and I love her. She keeps the home so beautiful. She makes it a wonderful place that I just love coming back to. And she has a great time with her friends, and so I'm certainly not against women in groups either. Everybody needs their place. Women need to have their women-only social engagements. Men need to have their men-only social engagements. And obviously there's ample opportunity to have co-ed social engagements. You need both. And yet we find that in this particular era, there's one that's getting threatened in every arena there is. And that's men-only spaces are always getting overrun with women.